Redditors in hiring positions. What small things immediately make you say no to the potential employee? Why? The biggest one for me was always whether they were responding thoughtfully and specifically to prompts or just using vague interviewee language. Related. If they answer one question in a condescending tone, it's not a good sign. Everyone will hate them, and you for hiring them. If they show bad attitude in an interview, wait till they've been on the job for a few months. It tripped me out when I started doing interviewing and hiring for the first time. I had no idea how weird and rude people could be when applying for a job. It gave me a lot more confidence going forward when applying for jobs myself when I realized just being able to string coherent sentences together on my resume and being a normal, friendly human being in person was putting me ahead of the pack. It's amazing, isn't it? Being on time, hygienic and basic politeness gets you a lot further than you might think. Treating everyone but the hiring manager disrespectfully. I was in a management position in fast food. I didn't do the hiring, but one minor responsibility was accepting applications that people brought in and answering any initial questions. The hiring manager always listened to the other manager's initial impressions of the applicants. So many applications were thrown out of the stack without ever being considered because the applicant didn't think anyone mattered but the person that made the final decision. I even had one lady come in and basically tell us that she would definitely be hired and be placed over us in management and that she planned on cleaning up our act. We had a good laugh with the hiring manager before tossing her app in the trash. A bunch of places I worked had a system where you rated resumes you were handed. Most used smiley face, frowny faces. If the person was a jerk, you'd just put a sad face on it after they left. If they were nice, friendly, and professional, you'd smiley face it. One place used a 1 to 5 rating. Same idea. If you, the frontline person who took the resume, would want to work with them, you put 5 stars on top of the resume. If you thought they'd be awful to work with, 1 star. It really strongly influenced the decision. To the point that anyone with a sad face or 1 star got the resume thrown out before you had even left the office. A few years ago I applied to a job, went for the interview, and during the interview I saw 5 smiley faces on the bottom of the paper the person who interviewed me was holding. So during the interview she would cross out one smiley face after the other, which stressed me so much because I thought I was doing something wrong. By the end of the interview and after all 5 of the smiley faces being crossed out, I was convinced I ducked up. So the interview ends, and I had to ask, why was she crossing them out? Turns out it was the exact opposite of what I was thinking the entire time. She would cross them out the friendlier you are. At my old work, we used a code. If the person handing the resume in was a definite no, then we would write 110 on the top of the resume. Using straight ones, if you join them together it says no. There was the guy who, when I walked into the conference room to interview him, told me to have a seat and said let's talk. Edit, in the interests of clarity, no, he was not joking. You're probably wondering why I brought you here. The ultimate power move. Assert dominance. Fart loudly while maintaining eye contact. When shaking hands, never let go. For phone Skype interviews, don't Google every question I ask you to get the right answer. It's a dead giveaway when after every question there's 10 seconds of umming, and then a textbook answer. You'll be surprised how often this happens. I did a lot of phone interviewing of programmer candidates at my last job. There's nothing like hearing the tickety-tack of a keyboard after each question, like holy shit, dude, get a quiet keyboard if you're gonna do that shit. The most fun is hearing other voices whispering in the background. I guess it at least shows the candidate is all about teamwork. Boyfriend had a person slip A, as you can see in the below graph. During a phone interview. Showing up late for an interview already puts you in the hole. Not addressing it or apologizing for it will make it complete. Turn a negative into a positive and show you have accountability. Not addressing it shows you don't have respect for me and my time. This. Much more this than the more upvoted comment saying being late is a deal breaker. I don't care if you're a little late if you are apologetic and seem embarrassed or regretful when you turn up. That shows me that even though you've met a challenge and made an error, you can be humble about it, apologize, and move forward. I agree. Public transport disasters, car breakdowns, etc., they can happen to anybody. It's how you deal with it that counts. I have several times before told the story of a guy who came into my old job with a torn suit and blood-stained shirt to tell our reception he was going to have to miss his interview because he just got hit by a bus outside and would be in hospital when he was meant to be at the interview. The guy literally hauled himself off the street into the office because his phone broke in the accident and he didn't want the company to think he no-showed the interview. And yes, he was hired for a similar position after he had recovered. If you put it on your resume, I'm going to ask you about it. So don't add filler. How do you feel about someone having virtually no side activities? I will ask about anything in this category. In fact, I like to start with this area because it can be a good way to break the ice and put someone at ease. I don't care if there's only one, as long as it's real. This isn't a college application. But if you like it and can show enthusiasm about whatever you've put down, great, even if it's just the one thing. I'm more turned off by someone that has a laundry list of interests and, apparently, never sleeps. I never do laundry. Nailed it. Actually, I would totally ask about this. Now that I have your attention. Well? Don't keep him waiting. You're gonna blow your shot. Embellishing. Job applications, like dating profiles, a little embellishment is expected to make yourself look good and most people can read between the lines, but I once had a dude when writing down his responsibilities at his previous job, put a bunch of things like used whisk, spatula and other kitchen utensils to circulate sauces and ingredients to bring all food to adequate cooking temperature when being prepared. It was all written like that. This guy supposedly had like 5+ years experience and best he could give me was a fancy way of saying he stirred shit. I'm not a big computer or email person. Get the duck out and don't come back. This is an office job in 2019. Both of my parents claimed they got laid off in their mid-50s because of age discrimination, when they were both proud not computer people. I've never understood how someone can proudly proclaim their willful ignorance. My father used to boast about retiring before he'd ever use a computer. His company made his wish a reality at 57. My grandfather was an engineer whose company built a lot of water pumps. They took on computers really early and continued using them eventually for water simulations and other software they designed in-house. My grandfather never used computers and refused to touch them and still somehow managed to work there for 30 or so years while they used computers, before retiring. Depends on the skill set. My dad is self-employed and I can't name another engineer that does his work and has his languages and community ties. He outsources the computer portion. He's tried, but this is a guy who needs written instructions on how to save an image from the internet. Is he older than 60? Both my parents are in their early 50s and they probably know more about computers and computer troubleshooting than I do. Neither of them studied anything tech-related either, or work in highly technical fields. Age is a primary factor, but some people just don't want to learn anything new. I can take a look at my friends now and tell which ones will have no idea how to deal with technology at 60. I'm amazed at how many candidates lie. Don't do that. Geez. Feels weird waking up to 1,000 angry liars. What's the worst one you have had? Guy said he'd never been in trouble with the law. Later I asked an unrelated question about licensing and he mentioned that he had a hang-up. I asked if he wanted to explain why and he said he had a dishonorable discharge from the military due to a violent felony conviction. The law had trouble with him. Don't worry, sir. My conviction was very fair. I have a small exteriors remodeling company and do all of my interviews on site. If someone gets out of their vehicle and flicks their cigarette in the yard, it's pretty much over. For some reason people interviewing have regularly looked at the tools we're using and talked condescendingly about them and explained they learned on another brand style and their way is better. Done. I'm open to discussion about tools and methods, but the interview isn't the place and leads me to believe I'm going to have to work hard to make you use my methods on jobs. Edit for some clarification. Cigarettes people are trusting us as a business to come to their homes, usually when they are not there, don't litter in their yard or in their neighborhood. Tools methods we are all open to discussion about methods and tools, but talking down to the interviewer is a bad move. Teresa difference between making sure we're on the same page and trying to prove you know more than the guy you're trying to get the job from. And it's never about the actual tools. I've done hiring for other businesses before my own, it's about showing a specific attitude. Those guys may do well in the industry, But my business prides itself on bringing positive attitudes to projects for homeowners, and those guys can't help with that. I once had a guy spend the entire interview explaining to me why we were literally doing everything wrong. He was just finishing up his bachelor's degree and had no practical experience. I'm hiring because my business is successful and growing, not because I need some college kid to come in and use his vast knowledge to turn things around. I assume he thought this would show how smart he was. I'm totally open to new ideas and new gear, but you need to show that you're someone whose opinion I should trust. For me, that trust is going to grow over months of you proving yourself, not an interview where you're implying I'm an idiot. He probably took away from his rejection they were just offended I was so smart. They're just jealous.